Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 6. Today, we have an awesome guest. We've got the CEO of Discmania, Jussi Meresmaa. We're going to talk to Jussi about all things Discmania, what's coming up this year, what to expect from their transition away from Innova, and also just some future disc golf stuff. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's jump right into it. All right, I'm here with the CEO of Discmania, Jussi Meresmaa. Jussi, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hi, Trevor. Thank you to inviting me to your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I just wanted to mention real quick, you just released a book today. Reinvent Your Game just came out. It's only
There it is.
available in Finnish now. There it is. You've got it right there. Only available in Finnish right now, but you did mention that there would be an English translation sometime later this year.
Yeah, we definitely want to translate that into English, but it was a very logical way to start in Finnish. So I would guess that probably at the later part of the year we can re-release it in English.
Yeah, awesome. Well, just talk a little bit about what we can find in the book and like what it's all about and just the process of creating that.
Yeah, that was actually a longer process than I initially expected. I started this on the first pandemic year, 2020. I kind of realized that okay, my company is going to turn 20 next year. Now it's good time to do something. I wanted to also make something else than just another disc or another bag or basket. And I'm a big fan of books and I read quite a lot of them. And I just wanted to tell our story. So this book is about our first 20 years, starting from the very beginning of my disc golf career and of course the beginning of the company 2001, and it goes through through the pandemic. 2021 was the last year that was actually in that book, so it has a very good insight what happened and how everything happened at Discmania. So that's probably a very interesting read for many who wants to get more deep into the game.
Yeah, definitely. And I certainly will be looking forward to the English translation. As soon as I saw that you'd announced the book, I was immediately interested. Another thing, just wanted to congratulate you on winning Entrepreneur of the Year in Finland. That was such an awesome honor for somebody from our sport to win such a cool award. I'd imagine a lot of the consideration you got for that award is not only for the company that you've built over the last 20 plus years, but also the maneuvering that you've had to do just in the last recent years. To keep Discmania thriving and also take that business to the next level. Just talking about that transition, because obviously Discmania has been around for a long time now, but these last couple years have been just major changes, kind of making a new transition into a new era of the company. Just starting back at the beginning of everything, before all of it kind of went down, what events sort of led to the decision to pull away from Innova and explore other options? And then was this always kind of part of the plan for Discmania, or did it happen sooner than you expected?
Well, first of all, we've been, in partnership with Innova for a very long time. So since 2006, that was the worst disc. The first Discmania disc was released in 2006. The idea of the disc lineup came, of course, earlier. I would say 2005. And I then went to California to present my idea of the disc lineup to Dave Doniface, and he approved my plan, and that off we go. And from the first years, it was more like that. Okay, I didn't really think about okay, what is Discmania going to be eventually. We were super happy to work with Innova. We had great discs. I mean, Dave was designing us a very good discs, but we were really not present in the U.S. market. We were basically distributing the disc. I mean, both Innova and Discmania discs in Europe, and everything started to grow from there. So eventually, we had the full lineup of discs, but it all pretty much came down in the recent years that Discmania started to get bigger and bigger. And I think one of the key moment was 2000 and I would say 18, pre-pandemic. We took the distribution in our own hands and distribution center here in US. I'm currently in our Wellington office in Colorado. So we started to realize that when we distribute our own stuff instead of Innova distributing our own stuff, we have more, of course, control and power what we do and how we do it. But also our sales started to grow, so it was a kind of a good indicator that okay, when we put more skin into the game, we get the results.
Hmm.
But I mean, then the next step was kind of that on the board level, 2018, 19, we made basically a big strategic change that we kind of continued our relationship with Innova fully, but we added a couple of more manufacturers or
Hmm.
facilities to our lineups, and we created the Evolution line and the Active line that was very well received, especially in the Europe. And that was kind of the first step to be more independent. And also, again, we saw a great results on it. And also from the business perspective, since we didn't own a single factory, we were not having a control what is being made or what is being
Hmm.
manufactured, when and how. So we started to grow so big that it was kind of being some sort of a liability and risk for us because we didn't make the decisions. Okay, whether we get the next batch of this and that, or whether we need to wait another 2 or 3 months. And
Yeah.
at that time, we had so many customers. We were we were distributing our stuff in the biggest change in Finland. So we had a lot of liability in a way that, okay, we need to have a better control of our supply and manufacturing and moving, with the partnership of, not partnership, but the relationship with the Latitude and Yikun. That kind of opened our eyes. Okay, as a disc golf brand called Discmania, this is our way to do things. And then the pandemic hit early 2020. Obviously, we all knew what happened and know now what happened. So the disc golf,
Hmm.
product demand, skyrocketed. And at that point, it was pretty clear for us that whoever had the manufacturing in their own hands, they had the opportunity to scale up and make things, happen. Uh, we started to, face limits, what we can get from
Hmm.
Innova factory,
Yeah.
and that didn't really play well for the other fact that the demand is sky high. So very quickly we were able to put things and plan together for our own manufacturing, and you know last year 2021 we were able to open our factory, and it's been again a third time we can see the result and this the ramp up and the sales growth. So I think we have made good decisions and right decisions. I mean, I'm super grateful for Innova for working with us for all these years, and I mean we have done a great work for them too here or there in Europe because we did represent them almost 12 years. So, I mean, we have sold millions of Innovadisc in Europe. So it's
Yeah.
not about, it's easy to kind of think that, okay, this is a huge rivalry and we are fighting arms with arms
Right.
there, but it's really not for us at least. I mean, we want to concentrate to our things and our good things and all the good to the others too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So obviously, stepping into that transition, it was kind of a matter of moves and counter moves. The pandemic hits, kind of what you were already starting to realize with the new demand just was heightened to a new level, and you had to make moves. So, what were your greatest fears with the transition? Immediately, what comes to mind with me is just the response of the fans and not being able to recreate your product the same way. But what kind of fears did you have?
Good question. I would say that the biggest fear is to fail our customer. So whatever we were going to do and release had to be great. I mean, Innova has been making great discs. Now, when we are making our own disc, they need to be equally great or even better. I mean, we need to make the best possible product. So that was a big thing, and taking consideration the timeline, we were ramping up and designing and developing our stuff. It's still like a rush. So we're still
Hmm.
in a very hurry trying to put things together. So I'm super grateful that the product that we have been able to put out now, it's has been accepted well. Of course, we, as any other manufacturer, we make some mistakes and nothing is perfect. But I would say the biggest fear was that we don't want to let down our customers. And I mean, we already did that by not having a P2 for almost a year or not having a DD3 for a long, long time. So
Hmm.
it was basically raised to that if you, I don't know what discs you are using, but let's say that your favorite putter, you can't have it because it's out of stock for a year. What do you do? I mean, most likely you're going to
Yeah.
find another putter. So it was a really like a race to that, get those things, and that's why we started with our most sold and most loved products. And of course, those have also the highest standards. So I think that we have done pretty well on meeting the requirements and expectations. And the good news are that I know that we can do better in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's safe to say that definitely the hardest times of that transition are now. You're on the other side of it now. You kind of have a lot of things in place to really just shoot to the moon at this point. There's a lot more ceiling now with your current circumstances. But now that it's all over, is there anything that you regret or anything you wish you would have done differently, or did it kind of all play out as good as you think it could have?
The new factory, or in general, the transition. I would say,
Just with the entire transition, yeah.
okay, I would say that first of all, when we did move to three manufacturing and three lineups on 2019, that was just 1 year before the pandemic hit. I think that was the best decision we could have ever made to our company, because there were times when our Chinese partner Yikun was in lockdown, couldn't make a
Mhm.
disc, and there was also a time when Innova was locked down and couldn't make a single disc. So we were super lucky to make that decision earlier, that we were actually
Yeah.
having at least one or two manufacturing partners making discs for us throughout the whole pandemic. That pretty much saved our business, because our originals lineup was, of course, it was 14 years before any other lineup, so it was our only lineup. And when
Hmm.
that kind of a disc stream drained, we were so lucky to have other streams. I mean,
Hmm.
without that, we would have been probably, I don't know what, it would have gone bad. So that is the most crucial decision we have made ever. And luckily, we made it 1 year before the pandemic that typically has hit this globe 100 years apart.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, so looking back after that, so that decision and everything that happened 2020 was kind of a speeding up the process of making our own factory. And that was a pretty easy decision 2020 when we started to think about it, that we need to do something like that. And I need
Yeah.
to also mention that we couldn't have built our own factory without Latitude's help. I mean, building the industry high level standard, factory that can make, the best possible disc that, Kyle Eagle and Simon are happy to
Hmm.
throw, they can trust them from the day one. It's not an easy task. So it needs a good partner from the manufacturing know-how side. So
Yeah.
Discmania has always been a brand, but we haven't been a manufacturer. So this is our kind of a first dip into that scene, and I'm super happy with our partner in there.
Yeah, it's certainly true that the timing of that move to add on those new manufacturers ended up being extremely crucial. Because even as a retailer at Foundation, we noticed during that time that though we weren't getting originals as much to distribute, we were still getting other Discmania plastic. We had something to promote, and I can just imagine that was huge for the company. But aside from the transition and all of that, I wanted to talk to just you a little bit about the future of disc golf. Mostly because you've been a part of the business side for such a long time, and also because a lot of people I've spoken with just say that you have a great vision for our sport in the next years to come. And so I just wanted to ask you some questions about that. Um, And when I was doing some research for this, it's funny, I actually came across an article that you wrote for Discmania, and it was written in January of 2020. So right before the pandemic hit, and it was titled Disc Golf in 2030, Predictions by Jussi Meresmaa. And I found this article to be fascinating because not only were you able to predict a lot of the things that did end up happening, but there was just some concepts and some ideas that you had that I thought were fascinating and kind of intrigued me. One thing that you mentioned in this article that I think was kind of a prediction and certainly a trend was you mentioned that certain manufacturers were spending too large of a portion of their revenue on player salaries. Recently, I've noticed that contracts are skyrocketing and there seems to be a huge push to sell signature discs in order to pay for those players' contracts. Do you agree with this trend and do you think it's sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, I stand behind all those predictions, even they were made pre-pandemic. I think the pandemic just speeded up everything, and of course, it created a couple of other interesting storylines. But if we talk about the players and salaries, I think there is nothing different in disc golf player salaries than any sports salary. So sometimes the teams they will hit and sometimes they will miss, so it will just be more visible now when the disc golfers salaries are more public information. Some are very public, some are not, but I mean, of course, not every disc golfer will get the best possible deal, or some disc golfers will get the deal that is better than their future performance. That's just how the pro sports work, and that now this is just another kind of a layer for our industry that we need to spend more time and probably use more people to make a research on these players and find how potential they are. And we are still very young as a professional sport, so there's a lot of things to learn. So it's obvious that some players are going to be kind of the overvalued in an
Yeah.
eye of a fan, but that's just normal. I mean, I don't see any strains there. So it will be interesting to see how this will play out. I think the player salaries are now, as you say, they are skyrocketing. They're very high, and now I think we need, in order them to grow more, we need to see, the performance, how they can bring back that value to the company, because this is at the end of the day, you know, sponsoring a player is a very simple mathematic. You need to, everybody needs to, earn and win something from that deal. So the player needs to be happy to get the deal, but also the manufacturer, they need to get the deal back. So we will see that we will see in the next 2 years how this will play out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of another point that you made in the article that's kind of a counterpoint to the skyrocketing salaries kind of relates to tournament purses. And you mentioned in the article is the idea that in order for pro tournaments to become more profitable, that the promoters and the event managers have to invest in the infrastructure of those events in order to make them more appealing to outside sponsors. And this sounded to me like the reasons that purses aren't maybe increasing as quickly as possible is, or as people might think they would, is because of a lot of the money being reinvested into the events to make them more appealing. And this might create kind of an illusion that the purses are frozen because they haven't really been going up, when really it might be a matter of there's investing going behind the scenes that's going to create a huge burst in the size of purses later down the line. Do you think that tournaments are being invested like this currently? And how long do you think it'll be before tournament purses are able to be, six-figure prize money consistently?
I would say that Disc Golf Pro Tour is doing a great job of making, a handful of events very big and, very visible. And I would say that similar to the player market, the tournament market will be divided to the big players like the majors and the biggest pro tour events that are able to build a business around it. Let's say a Ledgestone or MVP, United States Disc Golf Championships or European Open. All of these bigger, more established tournaments, they have now a great opportunity to build a business around the merchandise, spectators, media rights, etc. Those were not kind of a big deal, a few years ago. So this will help them to grow, but at the same time, a regular A tier in wherever state is going to have this exactly the same issues than previously. So
Hmm.
the players are expecting better service and better tournament experience. There will be more spectators, and they don't want to just stand on the parking lot without no services and food. So it's going to be a tricky for the mid-level tournaments to stay and
Hmm.
be there. And it will be probably a very lucrative for the bigger events to because they will get all the attention, all the sponsorships, and all the uh, media payments or media rights. So it's going to be interesting also on this side how this will play out. I want to say that, for example, we run the European Open, which is the first PDGA major in Europe and one of the biggest tournaments in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a year-round thing, and we have a dedicated employee to run that event and plan it all year round. So only the salary we're talking about a big number to spend on one tournament that doesn't really make us money. Of course, his work is going to be very crucial for the tournament, but the bigger tournaments are basically going to be like their businesses of their own. And
Hmm.
building the infrastructure requires tens of thousands of euros or dollars that we need to invest to these tournaments in order to cater those thousands of fans. So it's pretty logical movement, like development that we're going to see, but it's also that only the bigger companies are able to do it at this point, and it's going
Yeah.
to be a stretch for local tournaments to step up on that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I do think that there's definitely an advantage for tournaments that already kind of have a leg up and that are run by manufacturers or companies that already have some capital to invest into those events. It's kind of one of those things where you have to spend money to make money. So those tournaments that already have that leg up are going to have an advantage. Certainly, it's going to take a lot more time for the smaller ones. One other topic that I really wanted to ask you about, because this is something that I'm kind of passionate about as well, is disc innovation. And I stumbled upon a Reddit thread where it was an ask me anything that you did on Reddit a while ago, and somebody had asked about the innovation of discs, and I had kind of like had the realization recently where I kind of thought it's interesting that I feel like since I've been in disc golf over the last decade or so, there was kind of a period of time where new plastics and new ideas were kind of being put into disc golf. But it seems like lately, and this has something to do with just the fact that companies are just trying to keep up with demand. But it seems like lately we've kind of hit this slow period to where there's a lot of complacency and other companies aren't necessarily like the Star Destroyer, for example, is still the flagship distance driver of disc golf, and it has been for so many years. What do you think it's going to take for a company to want to push the boundaries of the disc a little more and create something new? And what do you think that might look like?
That's a very interesting question, and from my part, I've been always more interested and concentrated to the sales and marketing part of this game and sport.
Yeah.
And now, of course, when we have a better access and ability to make innovations, we're definitely going to do that. But after we have actually ramped up our current production, so of course the main goal for us at Discmania is to you know relaunch the originals line, and that's going to take still approximately 2 more years because we really
Hmm.
want to make it right. But what comes to the actual disc innovation part, I agree. I think that there is a room and there is a space to do something on the disc innovation side. Obviously, it is limited by certain PDGA regulations, but of course, when this industry is getting bigger, there's going to be more financial interest to make innovations. So I would expect that in the next couple of years, we're going to see relatively new companies or even newcomers to make some sort of an innovation. I mean, there is this Danish company that made some innovations on the aerodynamic side but I don't really know how strong their theses are in a way that I mean there's a lot of people who has kind of studied the aerodynamics of the frisbee or flying disc, but that's just the one thing. The other more important thing is it's how you make it. I mean,
Yes.
we can design a perfect flight and test it on a 3D simulators, but molding that disk and making that exactly like that consistently is a whole new ball game. At least what I have
Yeah.
learned now.
Yeah.
So I think that needs, and probably I'm not even sure if we ever get there because we are using plastics and this kind of molding technology, that we can get the very best part of the aerodynamics consistently. It's going to be
Right.
very hard. So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, because another thing you mentioned in that same thread was that you kind of hoped that plastic would eventually become sort of obsolete in disc golf and that we would move on to new materials. Have you heard anything about experimenting with anything like that? Or like, is there any material that you kind of had in mind that might be a future for the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm working under a certain NDAs with very big external, companies of disc golf at the moment to create new materials for disc golf, and
Wow.
I think we're still some years away from that kind of a development, but we are definitely putting our hat into the ring on that kind of thing. And it's no secret that, you know, the world needs to go the more, ecological and sustainable direction. So having a reusable or biodegradable plastic materials is very important for the future of this planet. So I think that we're going to see that kind of a development coming into the disc golf in the next couple of years. But definitely Discmania now as a manufacturer, we have some projects that are like couple more years ahead,
Yeah.
but we are still already working with those kind of things. So it's inevitable that we will see some other materials too.
Yeah, I think that'll be really cool once companies start getting on that track and we start seeing a whole new era of disc golf with new materials. But one more thing I just wanted to ask before I let you go is just kind of to hype up Discmania for this year. What are the things that Discmania fans should be looking forward to in 2022?
Just a quick peek, these kind of things.
Okay, wow.
So disc wise, we have Eagle is actually coming here in 2 days and test the new stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that testing session. But we will try to release a handful of new molds this year. I mean, we are fully hand tied with the current production and current models, but at the same time we're trying
Yeah.
to make a lot of progress on the new molds and especially the originals because that is something that we owe to our customers. So our fans and originals fans, they should expect at least 2 3 more releases later this year. On the back side, we are finally getting into the back business. So we have a lineup of backpacks coming for
Oh, wow.
2023. So we are working with those, and that's something. And also, I would say that we want to we want to release one more distance driver on the Evolution side. I don't I haven't seen it yet, the actual prototype, but that's on the pipeline, and a lot of cool Simon and Eagle and Kyle and Niklas stuff coming up. So we kind of missed the opportunity with the signature and signature and creator series discs, but it was a tough decision between having the base production and signature production because you had to choose, and we're going to ramp up the signature disc production for sure. So more Simon, Eagle, Kyle, Niklas, and our team stuff coming up. So a lot of things going on in this year,
Yeah.
and I would expect that we will be probably the most active disc release company in the next 18 months. I mean, there is a lot of on the pipeline.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a full slate, and I'm sure that Discmania fans like myself are going to be really excited to see all the new things that are going to come out of this new era of the company. But it was awesome getting to hear from you just on the state of Discmania and everything that's going on over there. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Trevor, for the support and good luck with your show.
All right. And thank you once again to Jussi for joining us on the show. Awesome to hear about all the things going on at Discmania and what they have planned for the future, and also some of the thoughts that Jussi has on the future of disc golf as we know it. Make sure you're here again next Thursday to tune in for another great show. We'll see you.